Hello and welcome to the Discover Dayton podcast, the show that's all about the Gem City's past, present, and future. My name is Arch Grieve and I'm your host, and today I'm excited to talk to Val Smith, the owner of Sugar Camp, which is a local business here in Dayton that she owns and operates, and which makes cool Dayton-inspired products that she personally designs and creates. Her products are available in a number of different stores, including The Co. in downtown's Dayton Arcade. I'm excited to talk to her and hear her story and learn more about her business, so stay tuned. Well, hello and welcome to the show, and thanks so much for coming on to talk with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Well, so I'd like to start off by asking you first to talk a little bit about yourself, because your roots have always really been in Dayton from what I understand. So can you share a little bit about yourself first?
Very much so. A lifer for sure. I've always lived either downtown or within a 10-mile radius of downtown. I went to school here. I went to the Modern College of Design out in Kettering, and to become a graphic designer, which I am still to this day. As I've gotten a little bit older, I've lived in some of our great historic neighborhoods here in town. My family and I currently live in a 107-year-old home just outside the UD campus, where I run my business out of. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell. I work from home. I run a graphic design business and also my accessory business, Sugar Camp, which I'm here to talk to you about today.
Awesome. Well, now I understand too that your mom was a big inspiration for you, and many people will probably recognize her because she's the owner of the Century Bar downtown Dayton, which, just for full disclosure, I should say that I used to work for. So could you maybe share a little bit about why she's such an inspiration to you, though?
Yeah, totally. And she has very lovely things to say about you. I should add.
Well, great. Thanks.
So as a kid, it was super cool to be like, yeah, my mom owns a bar. Like how many that. So it's kind of a weird conversation starter. But as I've gotten older, and the implications of what it is, it sets in and you start to understand. And looking at my mom, how she so kind of fearlessly jumped into owning a business, and particularly a bar, like in the 90s when not a lot of women owned bars, I think was really super cool. And, kind of made me feel like, well, maybe I could do stuff like that too. And she's, watching her kind of weather the high highs and the low lows that come with business ownership, for almost 30 years now. It's been a really good learning experience and kind of perseverance and persistence. And she's always there for me to kind of like air any grievances I might have, or come to when I have a problem, or ask tax questions. So she's been great, been one of my biggest inspirations.
Awesome. Well, it's probably is my favorite bar in Dayton, I'd have to say. So
it's a great one.
Yeah. Well, so moving on to what I invited you to, on the show to talk about today, I'd love to hear about Sugar Camp, your business. But before we get to that, can you tell us maybe why you chose that name? Because I know it's got a lot of history associated with it, particularly, Dayton history, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to do this justice. So forgive me, history buffs, if I get any of the details wrong. But so Sugar Camp today, if you go there, it's located in the corner of Oakwood. It's actually pretty close to where I live now. And it's up on the hill, and it's just like a business complex with some kind of cool mid-century modern buildings. So a lot of people ask me, like, is that like the office complex, Sugar Camp? And no, I'm not associated with them. I am just inspired by the history of it. So what it used to be, it was part of NCR, and it was kind of a training camp for their salespeople. And it was pretty revolutionary at the time, I think. But it's had amongst Maple Grove, which is where it gets the name Sugar Camp from. But when World War II happened, NCR kind of lended part of their campus to the government. So they allowed a group of women called, they were Naval Waves. And Waves is an acronym that I cannot remember what that stands for at the moment. But they were female naval officers, which at the time, there were not a lot of women that were enlisted in the military at all. But they allowed them to stay there in Sugar Camp. So that was like where their barracks were set up. And they would march down the hill every day to a building in NCR. And they worked on a project that was super top secret. They didn't even tell them what they were working on. And they didn't tell them for decades later. So I got to imagine some of them never even knew the importance of what they did there. But it turned out that they were working on a machine called the Bombi. And the Bombi was used for decoding the German encryption device called the Enigma. And the Enigma was used to communicate between the German forces and their people on the ground, or their U-boats, which were a huge asset for the Germans at the time. And so by using this Bombi machine, they were able to intercept the Enigma messages and decode them. I believe the Waves worked on a second iteration of the Bombi because the Germans adapted their technology once we cracked the code the first time. And so by doing that, it is said that the Waves could be credited with shortening that war by a full year. So super cool piece of local history that not a lot of people know about, especially the younger generation. So by taking on that name, I felt it was really important to share that out with people that may not have known about it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I think you can still see at Caroline Park, they have some of the original, or like one of the original buildings that the women stayed in. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go in there and see kind of how small their bunks were and kind of where they hung out, and see some kind of creepy mannequins in there. My son was always afraid of it when he was little.
Right. That's funny. Well, so finally, would you tell me about your business, Sugar Camp, and how you started that and what all you do exactly?
Yeah. So about a year ago, like a lot of people during the pandemic, I lost my job, and I was working as a graphic designer at a local agency. And I was kind of left scrambling, and my first instinct was to kind of pick up graphic design. That's what I know. That's what I do. But at the same time, my best friend, her name is Angie Holycross. She runs a small business called The Savage Stitcher, and she does embroideries. And she was really starting to take off at that time. And she was going to be doing a pop-up outside Hart Mercantile, and I offered to help her, just set up and stuff. And she's like, why don't you vend with me? And I was like, cuss yeah. But I didn't really have anything to vend with. So I had to it really kind of relit that spark, because her and I used to operate a business under the name Sugar Camp when we were younger. And I asked her if it was okay if I kind of revived the name. And she was like, yeah. And so I started thinking. I had kind of a 2-month deadline about what I could get done in that amount of time. And I have a background in fashion product design and marketing and experiential marketing, and a lot of things that really kind of lended itself to starting a business where I sold actual physical goods. And kept coming back to textile design. I love to design print and pattern. And so bandanas just kept surfacing, and it seemed kind of weird to me, but it was such a cool niche. And I love accessories. And so it was also a way to kind of include levels of my activism in my art. Most of my designs have some sort of messaging on them. So I went with bandanas, and and we had our pop-up, and that was kind of my first real pop-up, and it's kind of been off since then. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's awesome. Well, and I first ran into you at one of the market days that were at the Dayton Arcade, and I loved one of the bandanas that you make, and I got that. But I know you make other things also. So could you talk a little bit about what all you make and maybe what some of your product line consists of?
Yeah. So yeah, that arcade event was super cool. It's one of my favorite spaces in Dayton, and kind of being able to be a vendor under that rotunda, just like somebody 100 years ago, is so cool to me. Yeah. So thanks for coming to see me then.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, in addition to bandanas, I sell smaller accessories like enamel pins, patches, and stickers. They're kind of all an extension of the Sugar Camp brand. So things that include activism, messages of female empowerment, inclusion, basically my liberal feminist agenda. And then in addition to those, I make bandana cuffs, which I think are really cool. And people don't always notice them right away, but once they do, they think there's something really special. They're made out of upcycled leather. So what I do is I just order like 2 or 3 pound boxes of scraps of leather from artisans. That way there's no waste. I cut them down myself by hand, which is in time intensive, but still super cool. And they're just like a little cuff with a little fastener on them. And you can use those to fashion or extend kind of the wearability of your bandana or scarf. And you can wear it like on your hair that way, or you can wear it kind of like, picture like more like a scout bandana tie, like kind
of. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So those are super cool. So yeah, I like those. And I should also add that my bandanas are 100% cotton, and they're made in the US. And they're of a much higher quality than a lot of the bandanas that you'll find just kind of at a really low price point. So it's important for me to have as much integrity in my product as I can, but still making the prices accessible.
Oh, that's great. Well, I was surprised to see on your website that you're not just selling things, out of, the in the arcade, but also stores in Kettering and Columbus and even Austin, Texas, I saw. So what are those places that are carrying your stuff, and how did you end up selling items in Texas? I'm really curious about that one.
Yeah. So mainly a lot of it comes down to connections, and I've made a lot of really great ones. But the first store that ever reached out to me it was not long after I started, and I am forever grateful to her, it was Liz Actbay from Ivy. Which is, they're a florist in Kettering on Far Hills, and they're a beautiful space. And it's pretty much filled with local makers. And she offers a really beautiful, hospitable environment for like small business to kind of really either continue their growth or kind of get their feet wet in selling in a retail environment. And she's just the best. And it's a beautiful store. So I highly recommend people check that one out. But then from there, locally, as you said, I'm in the which is the art gallery that is in the arcade. Super beautiful space. So I'm really honored to be included in their gift shop. And then also Greenhaus Coffee out in Sidney. They are a beautiful coffee shop, and they carry my Good Vines Only design there. And then additionally, locally, this week, as of our recording, so last week I went into 1880 Candle Company, which is a gorgeous space filled with like candles and vintage goods. And there are other small vendors in that space as well. And they are in the Front Street complex.
Oh,
so
okay, cool.
Yeah, so if you're going to go there to check out candles and maybe some bandanas, I definitely recommend kind of wandering around there and visiting with the local artisans. A lot of them open up their lofts, especially on First Fridays for visitors. And then this week, I'm going into Urban Handmade out in Yellow Springs. So again, another space that is pretty much filled by local artisans and makers. So that I think that's going to be a really great experience. And then so Columbus, I'm in the Brass Hand, which is just a really great store. Like if you're ever in the Columbus area, just drop everything you're doing and go right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's owned by a really great lady named Heather McLeod. And just a chance happening, we were in there, me and a friend of mine, and she was wearing one of my pieces. And we got to talking with the cashier, and she sent us to the owner, Heather. And turns out Heather and I grew up like within a mile of each other.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So she's in the Columbus area now, but yeah, we probably crossed paths when we were kids. And so she invited me to have bandanas in her space. And then finally in Austin, as you asked, one of my very close friends that I went to design school with moved out there probably about 12 or 15 years ago. And she became a hairstylist, and she recently opened her first storefront where she does hair out of it. And I'm super proud of her. Her name is Carrie Osborne, and she invited me to sell some of my bandanas through her space, and I think they've done pretty well there. So I'm kind of excited, and hopefully I can expand a little bit in the Austin area. I think that'd be a good area for growth. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome. Well, people, of course, don't have to go anywhere to purchase your stuff, right? They can go on your website also. And how would they find that?
Yeah, so my website is pretty well stocked right now, but if you ever get on there and you have a question about something that you might have seen in a pop-up that I didn't have on the shop, just message me. I'm totally willing to work with you. But my website is a long one, and I probably should change this, but it's sugarcampdaytono.com.
Okay, great. Well, and are there any more big plans in the works or anything new that you're coming out with in the near future?
Yeah, I'm working on some smaller things, more kind of like extension items, like maybe some scrunchies or keychains with like kind of my phrases on them. I'm going to kind of tease. I'm working on maybe an elevated scarf. I haven't quite decided where I'm going to go with that yet, but I want to have kind of a little bit more reach with what you can do with my accessories. So maybe some new materials in bandanas and scarves. And I also have a new design coming out very soon that I just sent to printer, which kind of celebrates the history of women's suffrage, but also emphasizes the inclusivity and intersectionality of the modern movement as we start to get into some kind of scary waters with where our country is going with women's rights. So I think this bandana is going to really speak to that. So that's what I have coming up.
Very cool. Well, you're also on social media as well, I believe. What are some of the places people can follow you on?
Yeah, mainly I direct people to my Instagram, which another long one is sugarcamp_Dayton_O. And there I kind of keep you updated on events I have coming up, stores I'm going into, tips and tricks for styling, and also share a little bit of the kind of activism that I'm working on at the time.
Awesome. Well, before I let you go, I know you are a Dayton lifer, so I'm wondering if you could talk about what you like to do for fun in Dayton. Any favorite places to eat, drink, or play?
Yeah, I could probably talk all day, so I'll try not to be super long-winded with this, but so I kind of broke down some ideas into categories. So I really like to shop at Antiques Village, which is out in Centerville. And it's my favorite place to like kind of buy things for my home. I buy a lot of clothes there. I love to go inspiration shopping there. I love vintage textiles, so I get a lot of good ideas there. In the Oregon district, I love Brim, which is a hat and accessory shop. They have carved out a really beautiful niche for themselves on that corner. And then also Luna is great. I'm really into plants, so I love to go shopping there and anywhere in the district, really. Skeleton Dust Records in the Fire Blocks, really great little shop that I think a lot of people don't know about, but I think they should. And then also, we have a really wonderful maker community in this town, and I've really gotten exposed to it in the past year as I've started my own business, and I've encountered nothing but positivity and support. And I recommend finding like somebody, if you love what they do and they're a small business, follow them on Instagram and go find their pop-ups and tell them you came to see them. It will make their day, I promise. So that's kind of my shopping. As far as like going out on a date night, I love the Dayton Art Institute. My husband and I serve on the associate board there. So
nice.
It's a really cool experience. So I recommend going there for like a date night. The Tender Mercy is gorgeous. The people who own it are wonderful. Also, of course, the Century for like an old timey kind of drink. If you don't like whiskey, they have cocktails for you. We love to take our son to the Boonshoft in Carillon. And then for food, a couple of recommendations there. I love Smales Pretzels. They're a over 100-year-old Dayton business. Great place for a snack. I love to take pretzels into the office instead of donuts in the mornings when I'm working in an office setting.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, way better than donuts. Also, there's Sueño, owned by the same people as Tender Mercy. Just a gorgeous place, amazing food. Carillon Brewing, which I think is kind of an oddball that a lot of people don't know is there. It's a little brewery and restaurant, like really kind of classic foods, gaslit lanterns. It feels very warm and cozy, especially in the winter. And then also my all-time favorite place to eat is Thai Nine. Like you just can't beat it for the food and the atmosphere.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that's my recommendations in a nutshell.
I love it. And I forgot I had Emma Smales on the show, and I think she mentioned that you designed the Pretzel Day t-shirt. Is that right?
Yeah, I've done her t-shirts for the past couple of years, and it is a joy. She is great. She is a Dayton gem, and she is so fun to work with.
That's awesome. I was the first one there. I was pretty proud to say. So I got your t-shirt.
That's great.
Yeah. But yeah, it's cool. I love it. So, and Sueño too. We're going to actually, I interviewed Lauren Gay, the general manager there recently. So she will be in a future episode. So thanks for mentioning both of them too.
You're welcome. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear it. And thank you for all of the amazing businesses and politicians and places that you're highlighting. I love listening to your stuff.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking with me today. I really appreciate it. And it's great talking with you, and wish you all the best with the business, because it becomes bigger and better. So thank you.
Thank you. And likewise.
All right. That was my interview with Val Smith, the owner of Sugar Camp, a really cool local business that I hope you'll go check out. The website to visit again is sugarcampdaytono.com. And in my show notes on my website, discoverdaytonpodcast.com, you can find a list of all the places that are currently selling her accessories. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for listening, and stay funky, Dayton.